All right, welcome House of Champions YouTube friends, dropping your comments and questions in that chat, and make sure you hammer the like and subscribe buttons as we get set for the Europa League draw. And let's talk also with the main man, Fabrizio Romano. Who's in the house tonight? Oh yeah, my co-host James Benj is here, and we also have the hardest working and most active man on the internet right now. He seems to be the most traveled man on the internet right now, Fabrizio Romano. Fab, how you doing, buddy?
All great, my friend. Thank you, and always a pleasure to be here.
Big shout out to Fabrizio for joining us. Big shout out to James Bench for joining us. We're getting set for the Europa League draw, which is about to take place. We will be updating you as that draw is taking place. If we see a big tie, we're going to let you know, obviously, live. But we will also be getting into deep detail of the draw a little bit later on in the show. But before we do get into it, I want to run through some of the results from last night, Fabrizio, because Italian teams in Europe have had a lot of success, and that also includes Europa League. So Juventus getting a 3-0 victory yesterday, going through 4-1 in aggregate. Leverkusen Monaco was an absolute barnstormer of a game, 5-5, and Leverkusen going through. Manchester United with a good win against Barcelona, going through by 4-3 on aggregate. Union Berlin, what a story. Can't wait to talk to James Bend about Union Berlin's story. Their dramatic rise all the way through the leagues into Europa League and continuing this fine success. Roma go through, winning by 2-0, 2-1 on aggregate. Rennes, unbelievable own goal, made it a very close game in the end. Shakhtar going through on penalty kicks. PSV Eindhoven made it close, but in the end went out to Sevilla 3-2. And Sporting Lisbon 5-1 on aggregate. So let's get into it. James Bench, before I say hello to you, I'm going to ask you, Fabrizio, the Italian teams, not just the Champions League, but also in Europa League, doing very well.
Yes, I'm very surprised. More in the Champions League, honestly, because in Europa League I was expecting Roma, Lazio, and of course also Juventus with Angel Di Maria, who was absolutely fantastic yesterday night. He scored an incredible goal, but this hat-trick and his impact has been really incredible. But I'm really surprised of the Champions League results. It was a really difficult one for Milan with Tottenham, and they were absolutely perfect. And they also had the chance to score the second and maybe the third goal with Malik Cho and with the Keteler. Also Inter with Porto, really difficult game, tough game, but they were able to win in the final minutes with Romelu Lukaku back to scoring goals at San Siro. And also we have to mention Napoli. They are doing incredible in Serie A, incredible in the Champions League. And there is a special feeling around the city, around the team, that they can really do the double this season. They will never mention that in public, but they really feel they have something special in their hands this season. So it's really incredible to see how Italian clubs are performing. Honestly, I'm really surprised by Inter and Milan, but I'm sure that the second leg is going to be really difficult, really tough. So we enjoy this first part, but the second won't be easy.
James, before we get into obviously chatting about the rumours and the latest transfers, I want to get your opinion on Manchester United game against Barcelona. An overall thought on the Europa League process itself. There was a few shocks there. There were a few guarantees to go through, but what was your overall thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think the changes UEFA have made for a really fantastic competition. I've really enjoyed, the fact that we get these high-profile matches between the teams, some of the teams that fall out of the Champions League early on, that there's a real reward for winning your group as well. Obviously, the Manchester United Barcelona tie was fantastic, and I'll hit on that in a second. Just first of all, the tie of the round, Monaco against Leverkusen, what a game, and two fantastic young squads there. Ian, you know how much I love Florian Wirtz. I think he's one of the best young players in the world, and this is going to give him a real platform. But yes, I think with Manchester United, Barcelona, you really, as good as a result as it was for Manchester United, this really has you looking at the Barcelona perspective. I said this last night. They've spent 150 million euros to get this team back to where they believe it belongs in Europe. The sum total of that is 2 wins against Victoria Pilsen. Now, I think they're a very good team, Barcelona, but they're also a team that kind of is going to draw. The nature of the draws are sometimes you get, in your group, you get Inter Milan, you get Bayern Munich, and then you just happen to get Manchester United, and you're straight up out of luck. And against all of those teams, we've seen that Barcelona are a good side, but good sides sometimes get knocked out early on in Europe. And I think it really does paint a grim light on Barcelona remortgaging the club essentially to buy some footballers in the summer, because it's not brought the European success they were expecting.
Well, it's the perfect segue for me to now start to turn our attention to the transfer news and what's the latest with Barcelona. I mean, Fabrizio, how do Barcelona sort of correct this situation? I mean, domestically, they're doing very well. They're obviously challenged and sitting top of La Liga right now. We're seeing a lot of rumors with Lionel Messi and the fathers meeting. So what's the latest on the Barcelona transfer front?
Yes, at the moment with Messi, from what I understand, is still the same. Of course, we have many rumors because Jorge Messi was there in Barcelona, and it's important to remind that they still have their house in Barcelona. So when they can, they travel to Barcelona. They still love the city, and we know how special is the relationship between Messi and Barcelona. But at the moment, as Jorge Messi mentioned a few days ago, there is still no bid from Barca. And yesterday, Xavi, after the game, also mentioned the financial fair play. This is going to be very important to understand how much Barcelona can spend in the summer. It's on salaries, like in the case of Leo Messi, in case he will be a free agent, but he's still negotiating with PSG over new contract. So let's keep an eye on that one. But in general, for Barcelona, the financial fair play is going to be really important to understand how much they will be able to invest on the market. I think they will go in the summer for a new midfielder. This is the expectation for sure. I expect them to go also for a new fullback and centre back. Probably these two positions are crucial for Barcelona, and maybe for a backup option in attacking position, because of course there is Lewandowski, who is doing great, but they sold Memphis Depay to Atletico Madrid, and they probably need a player in that position. They appreciate the Brazilian top talent from Atletico Paranaense, Vitor Roque, who had a fantastic under-20 competition a few weeks ago. He's a player they really love, but again, it's about the financial fair play, because it's not easy to spend maybe 50, 60 million euros on a young boy in a difficult financial situation. So in the next few months, we will understand how much Barca will invest, but for sure they will be ready to sign new players in the summer.
Can I just dive in there? Vitor Roque is a top talent, and I know for a fact as well that a lot of Premier League clubs, including Arsenal, are tracking him, and that maybe is going to be the challenge, isn't it, for Barcelona, Fab? That they want all these players, but the money they have at the moment, and it's going to be even tighter as their income is squeezed a bit. So,
yes,
I mean, is it realistic to think that they can do another summer like last one and overhaul the squad pretty much?
I think it's not that realistic. I agree with you. Also, on Vitor Roque, it's not easy to have the competition from these clubs, because as you mentioned, Arsenal are following him, and many other clubs around Europe, they know how special is this boy. Also, for example, Barcelona wanted Endrick, but they were not able to compete with Real Madrid or Paris Saint-Germain or Chelsea in that race. So it's not easy for them now to move on the market. It's not easy to plan for the summer transfer window because of the financial situation, but I'm sure that maybe in the summer, changing a bit the situation and having that clear, they will try to do something. I can say that would be the same as last summer, where they signed many players and it was a big investment by Barcelona, but I'm sure that they want to do something and they will do something.
Yeah, it's a really great point as well, James, because, when you have success on the pitch, it always takes that pressure off you with the signing and the transfer. So, I mean, that tells you how gigantic that result was over 2 games against Manchester United, getting knocked out for Barcelona. And also, what happens now? How much pressure is on for them to spend more money? Do you make mistakes when you're spending money? Do you get desperate? If you have domestic success for La Liga, you'd have to say it's not a bad job and not a bad return for Barcelona with the squad of players that they have. Could they be doing more? Absolutely. You should be doing more.
Sorry, I know we're here to ask Fab questions. I don't want to railroad this, but what would Barcelona have put together in other circumstances where Barcelona just go, we're not going to spend any money, we're not going to sell anything off, we'll trust La Masia and the players we already have here, and we won't add to the wage bill. We'll do that. What would Barcelona have been? Second, third in La Liga? Is it worth blowing up your entire future to win a title? You would develop the team that was worthy of winning anyway, because you've got Pedri, you've got Gavi. I think it was an absolutely stupid approach that they took, and this virtuous cycle is very much grinding to a halt.
Well, I guess in many ways, Fabrizio, you can touch upon this one. It also leans into the fact why there's so much pressure on the Super League, right? When you see teams like Barcelona needing more finances to come into the football club to basically compete with the best teams and the biggest teams in the world, I guess there's more pressure for a club like Barcelona to say, hey, let's introduce a new league where we can get more money coming in. Is that right, Fab?
Yes, I think this is for sure. They need fresh money. They need new money, and this is the situation. I think it's what you mentioned is pretty clear. This is the reality. This is 100% spot on. Also, it's important to remind that, for example, I think in general in football, for Barcelona in this case, but in general in football, also extending contracts of important player is not that easy now. It's not that easy because, for example, Barcelona were fighting with La Liga to register players like Araujo, Gavi, after they agreed on new contracts. The process is becoming really complicated because of the financial situation. So it's really, really difficult. Of course, as James mentioned, last summer they decided to invest crazy money in some moments. It was really complicated for them to manage everything. And they also wanted Bernardo Silva, for example, in the final weeks of the window. So imagine how many things they wanted to do. I think this summer will be a bit different, but the plan is to try to find some money and to invest again and again to give Xavi what he needs. So let's see, but for sure for Barcelona, the financial situation is the key point to understand what's going to happen in the summer.
A big good morning to Vic out there. He says, Indika, Tielemans, Gundogan, Thuram, all on free transfers. You're welcome, Barcelona. Nice shout out there to Vic. Good morning to everybody out there. Thank you so much for jumping in the comments. I see you, Aaron. I see you there, mate. I see you, Omar. Thank you, everybody, for jumping in. Matt, good morning to you as well. Let's turn our attention to Josko Gvardiol. Got the important goal against Manchester City, claiming, obviously, in the media, which was interesting comments from him, that it wouldn't be a bad idea for him to move on in his career and potentially follow Christopher Nkunku. I guess my question to you would be, is that even realistic for someone like Gvardiol, for him to move? Because I know Leipzig are desperate to keep a hold of this guy.
Yes, and Marco Rose after the game was very clear. He said he will stay here. I'm asking for this. He wants the player to stay. I think it's not going to be easy, honestly. I'm sure Leipzig will fight to keep the player. They will fight to maybe find a solution together with the player, but they already extended his contract after last summer. Last summer, it was almost done deal with Chelsea. Yeah? It was more than advanced. It was almost done to sign the player at the end of summer 22, and then for Josko Gvardiol to join in June 2023. So the deal was almost completed, and then Leipzig were able to reach an agreement with the player to extend his contract and keep Josko Gvardiol at the club. Now, what I expect in any case, I don't know if it will happen this summer or next summer, but I expect Josko Gvardiol to be the most expensive centre-back ever, because Leipzig are not selling the player for 75, 80 million. I'm sure they want around 90, 100 million euros for Josko Gvardiol, so it will be an historical transfer. And it's also important to mention that when big clubs from Premier League start to move, it's not easy to keep the players, because Chelsea are still following the situation and they have very good relationship with people close to the player. Man City are following the situation, and he's always been a player appreciated by Man City. He was already in the list in July last summer, but they decided to extend the contract of Nathan Ake, but he was close to joining Chelsea, so it was a domino of centre-backs, and it didn't happen, but he remains a player appreciated by Man City. I will keep an eye in general on Liverpool. I think they need something fresh in that position, and so Josko Gvardiol is a Liverpool fan, as he stated a few weeks ago in an interview, and I will keep an eye in general on Liverpool on centre-backs, and let's see if it will be Josko Gvardiol or any other player, but I think it will be an important summer for him. So Leipzig will fight to keep him, but it's not going to be easy.
Union Berlin against Union Saint-Gilloise is the first team that's just been pulled out of the hat right there. I think it
was that pronunciation.
Oh, whatever.
Gilloise, isn't it?
Gilloise. It sounds like a racing car driver. But the second game pulled out of the hat was Fenerbahce against Seville, and Juventus Fabrizio, have just been pulled out of the hat. Let's turn our attention real quickly to obviously what else is happening around the transfer window. We'll talk about Leipzig right now, because I did see Jonathan David's name mentioned with potentially coming to Leipzig. It's not just about players going out. They also want to sign players too.
Of course, they want to continue with their idea, with their project. We know how big is the Red Bull project in general with Leipzig, with Salzburg, and so this is the idea. Jonathan David is a big target for Leipzig. They had contacts on player side. They are also well informed on the price tag, and this is the big problem. I think it's going to be really difficult for Leipzig to sign Jonathan David, because at the moment Lille want around 50, 60 million euros for him, and that would be really a big fee. So I think it's not going to be easy for Leipzig to sign the player. They had some meeting, they had some conversation. They want a player, but they know that it's not easy at all. Also because there are many clubs interested in strikers around Europe in general, in Spain, in Germany with Bayern, in Italy, probably Inter, Milan need to do something on attacking positions. And of course, in England with many clubs involved, especially Man United, but many clubs involved in the strikers race. And so for Jonathan David, I think it will be a big opportunity to move. Leipzig want him, but there are many clubs, and so not easy at all.
I find David's case really fascinating, because he's obviously been on the radar of top clubs for years now. And Bayer Leverkusen against Ferencváros, I'm disappointed. I wanted Wirtz in England, but David has, we've written before. Erik ten Hag really likes the player. Like, he's never been at the very top of Manchester United shortlist, and I would imagine, Fab, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think he would be there right now, because a lot of clubs at the highest level are very skeptical about, do we want to go and throw, like you say, 60 million euros at David, who is a super talented player, but one with only experience in the French league. There's, he is at that upper level of the market. And equally, West Ham, Everton definitely came in in the summer, at the final days of the summer window, and said, we want to sign you. And they went hard for him, but he just said, I don't want that, because it's so hard for him to pick his sweet spot between Lille, who are competing, high level in France, and then, finding the right club to make the move onwards. It's a really tough one for him. Sorry, I am completely distracted by the Europa League draw, where we have Arsenal against Sporting Club de Portugal, which is classic draw. So I'll let you take over, Ian, but there's some Jonathan David thoughts.
No,
thanks very much, man. Please go, Fab.
I wanted to mention one thing about that. I agree with you. This is a reality. This is a reality that many clubs also have some doubts on spending maybe 50, 60 millions on a striker who only has experience in Ligue 1 with Lille. But the last time it happened, it was Victor Osimhen, who joined Napoli for 70 million euros package. And now he's worth probably double that, maybe 140, 50 millions. So that was a good one. So I think Jonathan David is a very good player. And my feeling is that in the summer he will move. It will be time for him to go.
Matt Osman jumping in and saying Jonathan David is League One's top goal scorer. People don't talk enough about that one right there. I'm not sure if he is right now the top goal scorer.
He is, together with Mbappe, and yes, he is.
Yeah, I thought Balogun was very close as well.
And Balogun, yes, they are together. Yes.
Let's discuss Chelsea, because there's a lot of comments coming in. People asking about Chelsea galore. Every time you come on, Fabrizio, the Chelsea fans certainly come out. I must ask you about Romelu Lukaku. Obviously, got a goal in Europe this week, which was great for him. I'm sure great for his confidence as well. What's the future look like for him? And then also give us the latest on Chelsea in general. I know there's a potential of N'Golo Kante signing this contract extension.
Yes, for sure. The situation of Romelu Lukaku now is an important one, but won't be decided now. It's not going to be February, March, April. It will be end of the season. Inter will meet with the player. The player wants to stay. Lukaku wants to stay at Inter. He wants to continue at Inter 100%. So he hopes to be in 100% fit in the second part of the season to help Inter and then to be able to stay. My feeling is that at the end of the season, Inter and Chelsea will sit and will try to find a solution together. But at the moment, we have to wait. It's something that will be decided at the end of the season. Also, Inter sources guarantee that at the moment they're not even negotiating. They want to think about that at the end of the season. They want Romelu to feel in a good shape and to be ready to help the team in the second part of the season, and then they will make a decision. And also on Chelsea, it's important to mention N'Golo Kante that the new contract is really close. It's not done yet, but it's close. They have to decide about the length of the contract. This is quite surprising because in November, December, it was really unlikely. Then what changed is that the player really wants to stay. Kante wants to continue at Chelsea. He loves Chelsea. He wants to stay there. And so the negotiation is very advanced now. Let's see when they will find a complete agreement on N'Golo Kante new deal. And for Chelsea, keep an eye on the future, as always, because they are closing in on a deal to sign a boy born in 2007, so very young player. He will be able to join European football when he will turn 18, of course. But it's called Kendry Páez, Ecuadorian talent. They guarantee that he's going to be a super talent. And Chelsea are going to pay a very big fee for this guy. Yeah, it's not 2 or 3 million euros. It's more than 10 million euros for Kendry Páez. Again, born in 2007, midfielder, playing for Independiente del Valle. Many clubs wanted him around Europe, including Bayer Leverkusen and English clubs, but he is going to Chelsea.
Wow. Thank you very much for sharing that, Fabrizio. We appreciate you. We have Fabrizio Romano on the House of Champions. We're just following along live with the Europa League draw. Union Berlin, Saint-Gilloise, Sevilla against Fenerbahce, Juventus against Freiburg. What a great game that is. Leverkusen against Ferencváros, Sporting Lisbon against Arsenal. And then I didn't even see who the final four were. James, maybe you can catch us up in just a moment. Fabrizio,
Yes,
last question real quickly. Go on, James. You want to update?
No.
We're
limited time with Fab, not limited time with me.
Okay, last question is about Napoli here. Because of their success, obviously, Fabrizio, we see Napoli now being mentioned as a potential to lift the Champions League. And obviously, domestic success is almost guaranteed now because of their gap that they have. What about the Stars? I have many a debate with so many people out there about how difficult it is for clubs like Napoli to keep a hold of their biggest stars when you have success. Let's talk about Osimhen. We know, obviously, he's the goal scorer for them right now. We know what Kvara is doing right now, Kvaratskhelia. I mean, they didn't pay a lot of money for him. I can't even begin to imagine some of the offers that will come in for him. And another player that stood out to me, he was sensational in midweek, is Kim. Kim is brilliant on that back line. Absolutely brilliant. Everything he's doing. So how difficult is it for Napoli in general to keep a hold of these superstars when they're having this success?
It's very difficult. It's very difficult because, of course, these players dream maybe of different leagues. It's not just about Napoli, but maybe they dream of, I don't know, Premier League, La Liga, that kind of level. So it's really complicated. In all the cases you mentioned, for Osimhen and Kvaratskhelia, Napoli, of course, will try their best to keep the players. It's not going to be easy, but they will try their best. The real problem is Kim. Because, as you mentioned, Kim is doing fantastic, and there is a release clause into his contract with Napoli. He's a release clause that I'm told is a bit less than 50 million euros, and I think the player is definitely worth way more than this. So they're trying to extend this contract. They're trying to negotiate to offer him a new deal, but of course, it's not easy. Also, at this point of the season, to negotiate with players because maybe they want to wait for the end of the season. So let's see how the conversation will go. But for Kim, it's normal to have a lot of interest, as there is release clause into his contract, and so he's a dangerous situation, one to follow for sure for the summer. And for Osimhen and Kvaratskhelia, we will see, but I'm sure Napoli will try to fight. Also, honestly, how difficult it is for journalists to do our job with Napoli now, because it's an historical season for them, really historical, because it's like more than 30 years they don't win the Scudetto, the Serie A title, and also in Champions League they're doing fantastic. And so in this moment, Napoli don't want to comment on anything, on transfers, on new contracts or new signings or players to leave. They don't want to comment. They are 100% isolated. They want to focus on the second part of the season. And I think all the conversation will start like second part of May, beginning of June. So it's not easy in this moment to update, but for sure the most dangerous situation is Kim.
The one other thing to add to that as well, and Fab will know this better than anyone, is trying to buy a player from Aurelio De Laurentiis is a little bit like pulling your own teeth out. It is
Very
agony.
difficult.
I mean, we know that Koulibaly was being linked with Chelsea for about. I remember talking to De Laurentiis about Koulibaly 5 years before he joined Chelsea, and in all that time, Napoli were like, "Yeah, there's a price tag here, but if you don't pay it, we won't sell." So. A lot of clubs, I'm sure, will want Osimhen and want Kvaratskhelia, and they will find it really hard to negotiate with De Laurentiis.
I agree with you. Also, Zielinski was linked to many top clubs like Liverpool for many years, but then Napoli won that money. If you don't pay, the player stays. So I agree with you. It's not going to be easy at all.
All right, we have to let Fabrizio go, but before we do, Aaron's jumped in with a comment right here. Talking about Saka getting a new contract, we all know that Arsenal is targeting Declan Rice, but would they also move for a backup for Saka and a left-back if Tierney moves to another club? And that's also a great question about Tierney. What could potentially be his destination if he does leave Arsenal? It looks like...
I think he could leave. Let's see where. At the moment, it's still too early to mention some clubs. For sure, we have interest from Newcastle because they're looking for a player in that position. But at the moment, it's not something concrete or advanced. And also for Arsenal, I think, yes. I think they have to decide also on the situation of Nuno Tavares, who is doing great with Marseille on loan. And I'm not so sure that he's going to leave Arsenal at the end of the season. Maybe he could have a chance because he's a very good player. He's doing great with Olympique Marseille. So let's see for that position. And for Declan Rice, as we always mentioned here also with James, there is strong interest from Arsenal. They really like the player. I'm sure he will be in the list for summer transfer window. As of now, it's too early to say about the price tag. The negotiation with West Ham is really too early. The negotiation is not going to take place in February or March, but for sure he's a player they appreciate. So I would not be surprised if they go for Declan Rice in the summer, and I'm sure that Arsenal will have a really, really important summer. But now I expect them to be kind of isolated on new signings. As for Napoli, we mentioned Napoli. I think it could be the same for Arsenal. They want to focus on the Premier League. It's time to live the dream, and same with Europa League. And then we will see what happens in the summer.
Fabrizio, we let you go with a nice little tag here. Tobago CFC, he says, I love you, Fab. From a Chelsea fan, you are one of the best journalists. And I think that was out of appreciation for all the great work that you do. If you're not following Fabrizio across the social media platforms, make sure you go do it. Get the latest and greatest news from the transfer window. Also, a great football mind. Fabrizio, we have a couple of draws here. Roma against Real Sociedad real quickly, and Juventus against Freiburg. What's your initial thoughts there in Europa League draw?
Not easy for Roma at all. I think Juventus will go through, but for Roma, not an easy one at all. But very nice game. I think it will be a good one. And Dybala is in great shape, so I hope they will do it, but it's not going to be easy.
Fab, go and enjoy your weekend, man. Thank you for everything you do. We appreciate you, buddy.
Thank you, guys.
Enjoy your weekend. Thank you to Fabrizio Romano for joining us here on House of Champions. We say goodbye to him. We're going to invite in Jonathan Johnson to the show right now. James Bench, we're going to react with JJ to the Europa League draw. But first and foremost, let's say good morning to JJ. How you doing? Is it still morning where you are, JJ?
Hey there, guys. Good morning indeed. Well, it's just past midday, and as you can see from my hairstyle, I definitely woke up like this. A rude awakening for me in France after the Ligue 1. Well, I was going to say an expletive word there, but yeah, it was not good from the French teams on the continental stage, unfortunately.
But on the bright side, you did at least miss Ian Joy massacring the name of Union Saint-Gilloise, which was not what we heard first.
I do apologize.
Gillis, I think, something like that.
I'm just amazed that you didn't take the cup out of Union SG. I mean, it's a Union derby. What couldn't be liked about it?
I'm trying to keep myself quiet here because I'm frightened of waking the kids up. I'm at the home studio, obviously, right now. It is also 6:28 in the morning. So the less BS I get from James Bench, possibly the best for me. Just a quick update on
Speaking of best, you need to get the Best Buy guys back to soundproof your studio, by the sounds of it.
Oh, come on, please. This early in the morning. There's nobody around here, so it's hollow walls, you know. Real quickly, here's the draw. We have Shakhtar Donetsk against Feyenoord. We have Roma against Real Sociedad. Manchester United against Betis. Sporting against Arsenal. Really looking forward to hearing what James has got to say about that one. Leverkusen against Ferencvaros. Juventus against Freiburg. Sevilla against Fenerbahce. Union against Union. How about that, James? Will I just stick with that one? James, let's get your opinion first and foremost here. Arsenal's draw in particular, and let us know what you think about United's draw as well.
Yeah, I mean, the two English ones, along with Roma, Real Sociedad, kind of stand out to me as like the best tests, and I'm really looking forward to this. We know that Sporting in the Champions League gave Tottenham all sorts of difficulties. I think they certainly won at home. I can't quite remember what the other result was at White Hart, not White Hart Lane, the new White Hart Lane. But that's going to be a really tough one. You've got players like Marcus Edwards coming back with a point to prove, and Sporting are riding really high. You know, they've got good results against two teams that we've seen in the Champions League, Porto and Benfica, are not to be taken lightly. I mean, the fascinating thing with Arsenal in particular, you know, the Europa League has always been a means to an end of Champions League football, but it does matter to Arsenal, a team with very limited European heritage, considering the size of the club, that they win big competitions. And I'm certain Mikel Arteta would love to win the Europa League, but equally, you know, if you look at what would happen if they got through this, their April would involve games every 3 days. They'd be playing Liverpool at the start of the month, West Ham away, Southampton when they're trying to turn around their season, and Manchester City. I don't know if you're really that desperate to get that far into this competition, if it could hinder your Premier League title challenge. I think that all depends on player fitness. That Man United tie as well, that's a cracker. We know that Betis, and Jonathan, you've written, I know a lot about Betis over the last few years. They are going to be a tough out in this competition. They are a team that relishes European competition. And equally for United, a lot could change, couldn't it? And the question is, are they still in the title race by the time these games roll around? And does Ten Hag decide he wants to prioritise this competition or keeping in touch with Arsenal and Man City? Because even more so than Arsenal, I would question whether United have the depth for both a title run and a deep Europa League commitment.
Yeah, I mean, it is fascinating, this one. I mean, I think James is just trying to keep his emotions in check, you know, having Arsenal in the Hankook up against a sexy team like Sporting. You know, it is that there are, I mean, to be honest, it's one of those weird ones where we've kind of been spared the heavyweight clashes, but there's some really, really intriguing ties there. I mean, seeing the two Union teams go up against each other, that basically guarantees in itself a surprise package will be going to the quarterfinals, or at least a team that not that many people tuning into the Europa League are familiar with. Juve against Freiburg, you know, that is two completely different ideologies, which I find fascinating. Roma, that is a really, really tough tie against Sociedad. I mean, I think it's been quite kind to Leverkusen, with all due respect to Ferencvaros, you know, given the drama that they produced against Monaco over their 2 legs. Sevilla against Fenerbahce, I mean, that's going to be a good test of Sevilla's kind of serial winning credentials at this level. And then Shakhtar against Feyenoord, you know, Shakhtar holding their nerve against Rennes, and their reward is, you know, coming up against a very storied European side in Feyenoord. So plenty of pedigree in these games and lots to look forward to. But equally, I wouldn't say that there's necessarily a standout tie. I mean, obviously the eyes are immediately drawn to the likes of Arsenal and United and Juve as well. But, you know, I wouldn't say that there's necessarily a heavyweight clash like we saw between United and Barca.
Great stuff. Listen, we're going to deep dive into the Europa League fixtures that have just been drawn a little bit later on in the show. Before we do so, I want to also have a quick preview, a whip around of what's happening across Europe domestically this weekend. There are some unbelievable games to look forward to, and we look forward to discussing them with you right here on House of Champions. But stick around, we're going to take a quick break. When we do return, House of Champions will be right back with a preview next.
Let's go. You can feel the madness. Never seen nothing like this before. Never seen nothing like this.
Gotta love a good old promo. Here's another one. Don't miss a second of the action from the greatest club competition on earth, the Champions League. Follow the biggest stars from the world of soccer like Lionel Messi, Karim Benzema, Victor Osimhen, and Erling Haaland as they try to clinch the most prestigious prize in the beautiful game. All of your soccer needs, from the Champions League to Europa League to Serie A to NWSL and so much more, is available to you on Paramount Plus. You can try 1 month for free if you'd like using the code ADVANCE. Welcome back to House of Champions, everybody. Ian Joy with James Benge and Jonathan Johnson. We are about to react to Europa League draw that has just taken place. But before we do so, I want to have a quick whip around with you guys, if it's okay, about what is happening around the domestic leagues this weekend. There are so many games to look forward to. Wow. Let's start with an EFL Cup final. Manchester United against Newcastle. Quick thought from both of you. James, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, this is really all about Loris Karius. Newcastle fans have waited so long for that, that shot at silverware, and even longer to actually win it. I remember those teams of the late 90s playing in the FA Cup final and getting rolled over by whoever was the Premier League champion that year. And you think, gosh, they've got this brilliant defense with Nick Pope as a sweeper keeper and top-tier shot stopper. And just that moment of madness handling the ball against Liverpool could change everything. I mean, Pope is so foundational to the way Newcastle play. And of course, Martin Dubravka, who would be the other number 2, he only gets his medal if Manchester United win the competition, because he was on loan at Man United and the only time he ever featured was in the EFL Cup. So I have to say, I think this is all setting up for the Loris Karius redemption moment for Newcastle to finally get that trophy some of their fans have been waiting their whole lifetime for. I mean, on our running order, it has the question, who needs his title more? It's Newcastle. They're just begging for a title. And we're all neutral here on House of Champions, but by God, I hope they get it.
You know what? You say that we're all neutral, but I have extremely bitter memories of going to Wembley as a Villa fan, coming up against Manchester United, watching United clinch yet another League Cup title, and it not meaning anything to the supporters pouring out of the stadium before the trophy lift. So I'm definitely team Newcastle for this one. And I think it's going to be fascinating as well. I mean, James spoke brilliantly about the redemption arc that you've got going on with Karius, but also, I mean, what this does in terms of the Newcastle project. I mean, look at where they've come from sort of a year ago, battling against relegation, to now sort of being in the shake-up for Europe, and then suddenly potentially adding some silverware, to the cabinet very, very early on in their new project. So, I think that really will, put them on the map if they're not already on the map. I mean, of course they are. We know they are, but you know what I mean? Like in terms of actually like bringing that tangible success very early on in the Saudi project. So I think this one is an absolutely fascinating one. And something that makes it even more interesting is that normally, or, go back a couple of months, I'd have really fancied Newcastle for this one, but suddenly United are starting to look like the United of old, and that's not necessarily a good thing for Newcastle coming into a cup final.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And it is a cup final at the end of the day. It's a chance to lift silverware, which I think to Ten Hag also means a lot, right? I mean, the way he's performing with his club right now, it is fun to watch. But for Newcastle fans and their new ownership, of course, they're desperate to lift that silverware. So this really would be a great ending it would be a great story, really, for both sides of the story here. I know you guys maybe are leaning towards the Newcastle side, but I am absolutely not. So I hope Manchester United get their hands on this trophy. Letitia jumping in and saying maybe Karius will have a new kickstart for the rest of his career. Nice comment coming in there. And you just saw Matt's comment saying, I hope that Karius has a great final. I would love to see him get some sort of redemption. James, if I'm not mistaken, Chelsea-Tottenham is on Sunday just before the cup final, if I'm not mistaken. That's another banger of a game between two teams that I'm still trying to figure out, what's actually going on in their season. Not great in Europe in the first legs, obviously. But this is setting up to be a very interesting affair. Let me get a prediction from you and how you think this game is actually going to play out.
I write my column. It's called Bold Predictions. So let's go real bold with this one. I think Chelsea are going to score. That's as bold as I think as you can be in European football right now. Like, if you set aside the Southampton, I think there are real question marks to be asked about Graham Potter and why, when he actually had a team that played well against Borussia Dortmund, he sort of decided to rip up the whole formula and bring, rotate and not really treat Southampton, I think, with the respect that was deserved. But like, it is slowly grinding into gear, this Chelsea attack. It's getting a little bit better. João Felix looks so strong. Enzo Fernandez looks decent. There's still a lot of work I feel like needs to be done, but I think to an extent, it's really just been like some bad shooting, some bad luck, and we know that tends to correct itself. Will that like be enough to beat Tottenham? I don't know, because I mean Tottenham are almost as unknowable as Chelsea as well. So all I'm going to do is stick my head above the parapet and say Chelsea score. Tottenham are so unreliable that let's say it's a draw, a scoring draw. Imagine such.
Yeah, it amused me that Ian said, these are two sides still working each other out. I mean, it definitely feels like, Potter and, I would say Conte, but obviously Conte won't be there this weekend, are still trying to work themselves out and figure out exactly who their best, teams are, especially after the transfer window closed. But for me, I find that Spurs play better when Conte isn't there. They've gotten, results against the likes of Man City. So, could this be one where they maybe, pull off an unexpected good result? Maybe, but I agree with James. It was a bit weird to see Potter tinkering again after what was a fairly encouraging display. So, I'm gonna go for Tottenham to shade this one. I don't know if James is going for Chelsea to definitely score. I can see this maybe finishing 1-1 or 2-1 to Spurs.
James has gone.
I need Chelsea to stay where they are, so Villa can overtake them.
All right, we're whipping around Europe's games right now. There's a lot to go through, so we're going really quickly here. Let's turn our attention to the Madrid derby here. It's Real Madrid against Atleti. JJ, I'll come to you first on this one here. What can we expect from this game? Real Madrid obviously coming off the back of that emphatic victory at Anfield. Atleti had a good win last weekend. Great goal from Griezmann, by the way. I don't know if you caught it. But Atleti's record in La Liga away from home at Bernabeu is not good. They haven't scored goals, and I think it's the last 4 that they haven't scored in the Madrid derby in La Liga in Bernabeu. So what can we expect from this game? Do we see a tired Real Madrid? Do we see a Real Madrid rotate? Do we see Atleti get a victory? Do we see Atleti get a goal?
Yeah, all good questions. I do think that there will be an element of coming back down to earth after that unexpected, thrashing of Liverpool at Anfield. Really, it's certainly, at least in terms of the score. It's a strange one. It's a strange one to judge because, we're always looking at this Real Madrid side saying, surely, this has to be the last of the summer wine. And then they somehow find just a little bit extra and bring out, some of these unbelievable results. In many ways, I think maybe the Real result at Anfield was a little deceptive, certainly in terms of, sort of how many goals were scored and some of the awful defending that was on show. But I don't think that Atleti are necessarily the team that are going to show Real up. I think it's more, a bit of a continental hangover for Real Madrid. So I can see this one being a draw. I don't think Atleti will have enough to get the win, but I don't think that Real will necessarily have that much left in the tank after that Liverpool victory. So I'm going to go score draw, say 1-1.
I do agree with an awful lot of what JJ said. The one thing that intrigues me about Atleti, a lot of 1-0 wins of late, which no one's really been paying attention to, because why on earth would you watch Atletico Madrid win 1-0? But maybe they are getting back to that sort of grindy, difficult to play, frustrating team. But that was always a team that sort of froze in the headlights against Madrid. It's a really tough one to call. I thought that team was wonderful in that second half. They absolutely demolished Liverpool and would have demolished much better teams than Liverpool. For that reason, I still sort of shade towards Real Madrid maybe picking up a sort of 2-1 win. But it looks like, at long last, Atleti are back to a level where they can just grind their way. I see producer Des just says, actually, it's just Oblak, Griezmann and 9 passengers. But that's two pretty good players to build your team around. So, but I'll still go Madrid to shade at 2-1.
Oh, really interesting on that one right there. I was that sad person who was sitting watching Atletico Madrid desperate for a goal in that game. Sorry, James, that was me, the one viewer that was watching along. Real quickly, I'll touch upon the old firm. It's Rangers against Celtic in the League Cup final. JJ, I want a little quick thought from you and a prediction as well. But I will say this, though. I have a feeling with both of these teams in great form. They've both won their last 9 games. Obviously, it's not difficult, Scottish League, domestically, for Rangers and Celtic to have success. So really, the big tie is when they come together and they face each other in a cup final, or if it's in an old firm game in the league. But I've got a feeling, JJ, that Celtic will have remembered what happened in the Scottish Cup final back in April, where Rangers ran away with the trophy. And Ange Postecoglou, I'm a big fan of him. He'll be desperate to obviously lift another trophy and to continue this fine run that he's got going at Celtic. Really impressive form from both teams. Very difficult to pick a winner, but I shade Celtic here just slightly that they can get the job done, JJ.
Yeah, I mean, it's the kind of thing that, Postecoglou would really look to try and rally around and, motivate his troops with. I mean, I think we all hope for the same thing when Rangers and Celtic come together, and that's, a lot of blood and thunder, a really fully committed clash between, two very bitter rivals. But I agree with you. I do think that, it slightly favors, Celtic. I think since Postecoglou has come in overall, sort of the balance of power has slightly tipped towards the hoops. But this is one that I certainly think and expect will be, a tense, tight, emotional affair, perhaps decided by a moment of magic. But if I was to stick my neck out and pick one of the two teams to win, I'd probably be favoring Celtic.
James?
Yeah, I mean, the odds just sort of give you a real sense there of who is the superior team. And I mean, just look at how many goals they've scored. 82 in 26 means they are averaging more than 3 goals a game. And I know it's a Scottish Premiership and there's some teams down there that don't give them much competition. But Ange Postecoglou is clearly a fantastic manager who's got an awful lot out of this squad of players. And although it's always a bold move to back the away team in an Old Firm game, I have a feeling that Celtic might shade this one as well.
We have to say that Beale's doing a pretty good job at Rangers. And,
yeah,
and
he is.
realistically, not an easy challenge to take over Van Bronckhorst and Steven Gerrard. Obviously, a bit of a mess at Rangers, but he's managed to steady the ship pretty well. And over the last 9 games, as I pointed out, between both clubs who have won those last 9 games, Rangers have scored 21 in those 9s, and Celtic have scored 31 goals. Watch out for Kyogo Furuhashi, the striker that Celtic have right now. I don't know if both of you have caught him much, but wow, he's finally fit. He's a very, very good player and finally really scoring goals on a consistent basis. If it's okay with both of you, before we get to France, I'd like to touch on what's happening in Germany this weekend. It's Bayern Munich against Union Berlin. It is first against, third, many would say, second. They're all equal on points, the top 3. It's Dortmund, Union Berlin, and Bayern Munich, all equal on 43 points. JJ, real quickly, Bayern Munich, I have no idea what to expect from them. I still don't see it. I still think there's a problem with Nagelsmann and the higher-ups at the club. They have the squad to run away with the Bundesliga, but they're not. Can Union Berlin do something this weekend? Although it's a big ask after playing on Thursday.
Yeah, but write them off at your peril. I mean, honestly, the story for Union Berlin at this moment in time is one of those really feel-good stories, that everybody is starting to enjoy across Europe. Fingers crossed that it continues this fantastic journey that they're on, knocking out the likes of a European giant in Ajax. And really coming into this one, they have absolutely nothing to lose. And yes, Bayern have the squad to run away with the Bundesliga. I saw them against PSG, and although, they weren't, I wouldn't say that they were poor. I'd say that there were vulnerabilities that PSG could have better exposed. Who knows if we'll see that in the second leg in the Champions League. But for me, I think that Bayern always look like there's a chink in the armor at the moment. And perhaps that's what you're alluding to, with this situation with Nagelsmann and why he's not entirely convincing so far with Bayern. And I think that will remain to be the case. So maybe I wouldn't go for Union Berlin to get the win here, but a draw, I don't think it strikes me as that unrealistic, really.
I got nothing on this. I don't know why you're looking. I wonder how tired Union Berlin will be, basically. It's going to be it was a grinding game against Ajax, wasn't it? That had some ups and downs, whereas Bayern...
They're still going to be on the champagne going into this game. Their training session will be,
You can blame them. Surely not on the champagne in Berlin. Well, maybe in Berlin, actually. I mean, Ian, you know better than me. Are they be champagne or the lagers?
Oh, the beers all around in Berlin. Beers all around. They'll be popping those big 2-liter bottle beers that they got flying around in Berlin. This one's a tough one for me to predict here, but I have to give it to Bayern because of this short break that Union Berlin have. I mean, Bayern Munich have been able to prepare for this all week, get players back healthy. I have no idea what kind of performance. I really don't with Bayern. They're so difficult to read right now, but this is probably the perfect scenario for them. They're back in a title race. Sure, of course, they're favourites to win it, but to show to the rest of the Bundesliga who's talking about Union Berlin right now. I mean, the whole of the German media this morning is talking about Union Berlin being the team in Germany where everyone should be watching. And Bayern had a great win in their first leg in Paris, and people have seemed to forget that. So I feel like it's a point for Bayern to just prove to everybody, hey, we're still king of Germany. So I've got a feeling this could be a tough day for Union Berlin. I think Bayern are going to win it heavily at the end of the day. Last one before we turn our attention back to Europa League and then get the hell out of here. JJ, I got to come to you. This is what a banger of a game this is. Marseille against PSG. Obviously, we know what happened to them in the Cup recently. Paris Saint-Germain, maybe you can just remind everybody what happened there. But PSG, what's the injury latest on Neymar and other players? What do you expect from PSG? Who would be your favorite? And then also give me your score prediction, please.
All right, I'll try and be as concise as possible. It's going to be pretty tough, but no, I mean, there's so much to like about this game. Marseille in really great form at the moment, beat PSG for the first time in 11 years recently in the Coupe de France game at home. So Stade Velodrome, will be absolutely boiling as you'd expect for a game like this. And PSG really under the cosh after losing that first leg against Bayern. Some disappointing results recently. Clearly, the pressure is on when you've got Luis Campos coming down to the touchline to bark orders at the players during that dramatic late win over Lille. Fantastic Lionel Messi free kick, but let's not kid ourselves. Kylian Mbappe being back and able to play 90 minutes again is huge for PSG's season. Will it be enough to get a result, in a game like this? I'm not so sure, but one thing is absolutely certain: PSG cannot afford to lose twice in a row in Marseille. So I reckon that PSG will get at least the draw. I'm not necessarily prepared to stick my neck out and say they'll do any better. But it's not been ideal preparation for PSG for this one either. Christophe Galtier has been ill coming into this. You've got Neymar ruled out at least until the beginning of next week with some ankle ligament damage. So not looking too good there. Nuno Mendes is expected to miss out as well. He'll be quite a big blow. But I think, having guys like Kimpembe and Mbappe coming back, that adds a bit of mettle, a bit of mental strength to this PSG side, and they will not, want to tolerate, Marseille winning consecutive games against PSG in any circumstances. So let's see what happens. Messi certainly needs to get more involved than he was against Lille last time out, but this Marseille team, very difficult to come up against. 5-point gap between the two coming into this one. Can Marseille cut it? We will have to wait and see.
James, I can't believe you were so eager to talk about this game coming into this. And I mean, realistically, I've got to give you the microphone here about this game. I mean, share those wonderful thoughts that you had about this game, James. Come on.
I have like zero. Myself and Nigel Rio-Coker, we come on here and we tell you we just want to see what PSG do in the Champions League. And we've seen that. And I want a count of you to everyone that sort of says, and Thierry Henry, remember in our interview, he came on and said this, didn't he? He said, yeah, they've got Mbappe. How maddening is it that is sort of, you kind of, as much as I agree with him and he made the point so well, you just kind of want to shake people when they say this and go, they also have Neymar and Messi. And how is it that their fortunes can be so reliant on this kid? I mean, they also have a lot of very expensive players further back in the pitch. I just want one very quick question to JJ. We talk a lot about Neymar and it feels like the writing is on the wall, and that if anyone wanted to come in and have a conversation with PSG about Neymar leaving, they would be welcome with open arms. The champagne would definitely be out there. But is there a sort of acceptance within PSG that that's not going to happen? The big clubs will not want Neymar, and is there any idea where he might actually go next? Is he going to follow, for instance, Ronaldo out to the Middle East?
And it's a really good question, and I think it is obviously a situation that's quite frustrating inside of PSG, because there was a willingness and openness last summer to speak to any clubs that might be interested in Neymar, but who would have been interested at that point? The most frustrating thing for PSG was clubs would have been interested in the Neymar we saw in the first half of the season, pre-World Cup, when he was focused, when he was motivated, performing really well. Do they want the sulky, loafing Neymar who keeps getting injured since the World Cup? No, they don't. So, I don't think anyone is seriously going to come to the table and say they want to negotiate for Neymar at this moment in time. So it looks like PSG and Neymar will be stuck together, at least sort of into next season, unless, there is some sort of incredible, unexpected second wind over the remainder of this season. But we don't even know yet how long he's going to be out with that injury. You'd have to assume he's a doubt going into that second leg against Bayern for the moment. We'll see if that changes in the next week or so. But, Neymar it's just, it's so frustrating, and Galtier himself has spoken publicly. I see we've got a question there on the real importance of Galtier with the squad. Galtier struck up a really good understanding with this PSG squad in the first half of the season. They were playing in a recognized fashion, getting the best out of some of these guys like Neymar. And then suddenly, logically, also because of the World Cup and the impact that fatigue has, they've struggled to get it together in this second half of the season. However, it doesn't help Galtier when you've got Neymar, going and playing poker and then going on a McDonald's binge, and you have Kylian Mbappe coming out speaking publicly, almost like challenging Neymar to show the best of himself, which again, adding to this sense of frustration he did against Lille, got a goal, got an assist, then also got injured and stretched it off. It's just, honestly, Neymar with PSG is this story of frustration wrapped in more frustration, moments, very fleeting moments of brilliance, and then lots and lots of laziness, poor attitude, and just, general can't be arseness, really.
What a great answer, JJ. That was absolutely fabulous. I mean, that was brilliant. I hope our producer Des cuts that and puts that out as a short, because that was awesome. And I'm just seeing.
I don't know if the French have a word for can't be arseness yet, but they probably surmise it as buff or something like that.
Yeah, isn't that just being French? Sorry, that's not.
It would be all in the facial expression, that's for sure.
I'm just imagining the videos as you're talking about Neymar there, all the different videos that our Des and pictures can put up surrounding the chat there with Neymar's crazy, crazy movie that is his life. Producer Des, if you can throw the fixtures back up for Europa League. Guys, we don't need to go into deep detail of the games that are coming up, obviously, in Europa League. There is the draw for everybody to feast their eyes on. JJ, real quickly, I want to talk to you. It was poor from the French teams, realistically. I watched the Monaco game against Leverkusen yesterday, and Monaco were not at their best. Nowhere near it. Goalkeeping errors as well. Alex Nubel, for me, overrated. He was awful in a couple of the goals. The first one in particular was dreadful, and he was trying to blame other people. But not a good day for Rennes either. And I feel sorry for the youngster who was in tears after that game as well. Quick thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, there is something really crazy about the way that Rennes went out. Cast our minds back to the qualifying rounds of the Champions League a couple of years ago when Monaco came up against Shakhtar. How did Monaco go out? It was a wild deflection off of Ruben Aguiar, and then suddenly Rennes, allows Shakhtar back into a game that they were pretty much seeing out with minutes remaining before the eventual penalty shootout through another wild deflection. Sure, lots of reasons to sort of favor Shakhtar with a little bit of fortune and the rub of the green, but very unfortunate for the French sides. Disappointing. I don't think anyone realistically thought that Nantes would go and beat Juve, but to get blown out the way they did through a Di Maria masterclass, it's difficult to argue against. But sure, Monaco, given the ease with which they were scoring against Leverkusen, a good Leverkusen side with Wirtz back. I know that he's a James Bench favorite. I don't think you can. I don't think you can take the first leg lead in the way that they did and then give it away so spectacularly. Especially a team like Monaco, which really is built to at least compete in the Champions League. Rennes, yes, it was unfortunate and very, very annoying for French football, but overall, it's not a good place for Ligue 1 to be right now. And they are looking over their shoulders very nervously at the Dutch clubs, at the Portuguese clubs, and they will be hoping that PSG can pull off some kind of miracle against Bayern and make a deep run, because otherwise those coefficient points are going to take another big hit, and there's not much time left for France to remain one of the top five teams, top five leagues in Europe, which would be disastrous ahead of the new changes to the structure.
James, when you look at this draw here, where do you see the biggest upset or the biggest shock potentially happening from this draw?
That is a really good question. And I think you do probably have to conclude it's one of the two English teams that may end up being guilty of not taking it seriously. It is a criticism you have, isn't it, with English teams often in the Europa League. I mean, it has to be said that's sort of changed. We've had United in the final. West Ham have had a deep run. Arsenal reached the semi-finals as well. But I think both of them will have their eyes on other prizes. Aside from that, I mean, I think you look at it and you kind of trust a Sevilla. I have to say, you know more, Ian, than I do about Freiburg, but Juventus are a team that I don't trust with anything at the moment, and it will take a long while before I change my mind. I have to be very careful how you phrase that, don't you? I mean, The only
You wouldn't
one
trust them with your pocket money, would you?
They certainly wouldn't. Well, no, maybe. I mean, they would spend it, wouldn't they? And then they'd say they haven't. I mean, obviously for me, the tie of the round really is Roma Real Sociedad. It's the one to watch. I don't know if there is an upset there because you've got, I can't remember where Roma are in Serie A, but they're a top Serie A team taking on the third best team in La Liga. So third against third in both those competitions. That's the tie of the round. I think if I was picking one where the upset might be, I think Arsenal may well end up struggling in that first leg away to Sporting and struggling and needing to throw on the cavalry and it all not being enough. So yeah, I would say picking my upset, I would pick Sporting to knock out Arsenal.
JJ, before we get to you, I will say this about Freiburg. They have a great coach in Christian Streich, who is a very outspoken individual. I look forward to watching him on the sidelines against Allegri, and I hope that the German teams do well. Where's your surprise coming from, JJ?
I'm going to go for Sociedad to knock Roma out. I'm not sure that will necessarily qualify as a surprise, but I think many people will probably look at the two names and perhaps just shade Roma on that one. I had a great chat actually with a couple of people in the setup at Sociedad. So perfect time to plug the pieces that will be coming your way in the next couple of weeks about Sociedad. But really, it's fantastic, and so intriguing as well in terms of a club, because when people think of the Basque Country, they always think athletic club, but they don't realize what a good job and what an interesting project Sociedad have been putting together the last couple of years. So I really think, and not just because of the timing of the interview, that Sociedad will be very, very difficult for Roma over two legs. And for me, I'm just going to go for the Spaniards to edge that one.
Excellent stuff, boys. Longer than normal House of Champions today. I appreciate both of you. James Bench, thank you for your great work this week. Jonathan Johnson, you also great stuff as well on the website. If you guys haven't gone and checked it out yet, get to the website, cbsports.com, search for Jonathan Johnson, search for James Bench. The articles are ringing out as fast as you can read. So make sure you get over there and also follow them on their social media platforms as best as possible, because the breaking and latest, the greatest news is quickly and certainly more quicker found on their social media platforms. But great, boys, great week, awesome stuff. Thank you as always. Great stuff with the draw as well today. Apologies I woke you up that early. Oh no, wait, it's not that early for you. I might actually go back to bed. We are back again on Monday.
Early for us.
Yeah,
you don't know how lazy
I don't know.
we are.
Did you just get up?
don't you have some oranges or grapefruits to squeeze so your kids have fruit juice this morning?
Yeah,
my kids haven't even woken up yet. They're still asleep right now. I've got to go back now, be a bit more quieter. Listen, we're back on Monday with Fabrizio and the boys. Make sure you all tune in there. Thank you so much for listening to House of Champions. Please make sure you take a minute to leave us a rating and a review on your favorite podcast platform. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and anywhere else you get your podcasts. Also available as videos, so subscribe to us on YouTube. Boys, have a fantastic weekend wherever you're going, whatever you're watching. Enjoy the weekend. We'll see you all again next week. Thanks, everybody.